What if I told you that the Hebrew word usually translated rest doesn't actually mean what most people think it means? And what if the most unique thing God makes in the creation story isn't a place or a person or even an object, but time itself? Today we're looking at Day 7, the Sabbath, where creation reaches its climax not through more activity, but through stopping. This is Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, and we're going to listen carefully to the Hebrew. By this point in the story, Day 6 is complete. God has made land animals and then humanity. Adam made B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. Humanity is commissioned to rule and represent God on earth, and for the first time, creation is declared Tov Me'od, very good. Now we come to Day 7. Genesis 2:1 says, Vayichlu hashamayim ve'ha'aretz ve'chol tiva'am. The verse opens with Vayichlu, and they were finished. This comes from the verb kala, which means to finish, to complete, to bring something to its intended completion. Creation doesn't simply pause here, it reaches its goal. The verse continues with Hashemayim ve'ha'aretz, the heavens and the earth, language that takes us back to Genesis 1:1. Then we hear Ve'chol tziva'am, and all their host. The word tzivah means an organized host or ordered array. It's often used for armies, but the idea is structure and organization. Here it refers to everything that fills the heavens and the earth, the lights in the sky, the living creatures, and humanity itself. Creation is not chaotic. Everything is arranged and in place. So verse 1 makes this clear. Creation is complete. Now listen to verse 2. Vayichal Elohim bayom hashvi'i melachto asher asa, vayashavta bayom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asa. Again we hear the verb kala. God completes his work. But now notice the timing. This happens bayom hashvi'i, on the seventh day. There's something subtle but important in the numbering of the days in Hebrew. Day 1 is called Yom Echad, one day. Days 2 through 5 are numbered, but without the definite article. Then suddenly, Day 6 and Day 7 are called Yom HaSheshi and Yom HaShvi'i, the sixth day and the seventh day. The grammar slows the reader down and marks these final days as especially significant. Next, we hear the word melachto, his work. The noun melacha refers to purposeful, skilled, task-oriented work. It's not the word for exhausting labor or servitude. It describes intentional craftsmanship. The verse says God completed his melacha, his purposeful work, which he had done. Then comes the key word, vayeshavta. This comes from the verb Shabbat. It means to cease, to stop, to desist. It does not mean to recover from fatigue. God does not get tired. Shabbat is about stopping because the work is finished. After 6 days of purposeful work, melacha, God ceases. He stops creating. The stopping itself marks the work as complete. Notice how the verse repeats itself. On the seventh day appears twice. His work which he had done appears twice. In Hebrew, repetition like this signals emphasis. the text wants us to notice completion and cessation. Verse 2 tells us that God completes His work and then deliberately stops. Now verse 3 takes us even further. Vayivarech Elohim et Yom HaShvi'i, vayukadesh eto, ki bo Shabbat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim la'asot. For the first time in the Bible, God blesses something that is not a living creature. He blesses a day, the seventh day. Then we hear Vayikadesh, and He made it holy. This comes from the root kadesh, which means to set apart, to make distinct, to designate something as special. Holiness here is not about morality or ritual. It is about separation. God does not sanctify a mountain, a building, or an object. He sanctifies time. The seventh day is set apart from the other days, and the reason is stated clearly, because on it He ceased. The holiness of the day is directly connected to God's cessation. The verse ends with the phrase, Asher bara Elohim la'asot, combining both creation verbs. God created and God made. Everything He brought into existence and shaped through purposeful work now stands complete. There's one more detail we shouldn't miss. Every other day in the creation story ends with the phrase, and there was evening and there was morning. Day 7 does not. The text doesn't explain why, but the absence is deliberate and noticeable. Day 7 stands apart structurally, just as it does conceptually. So what makes Day 7 different? No new creation happens. The work is finished. The day itself is blessed. The day itself is made holy. And the stopping, the cessation, is what declares creation complete. This teaches us something foundational. In the Bible, holiness does not begin with a place, a people, or an object. It begins with time. Humanity, created on Day 6, enters existence and immediately steps into Day 7. The first full day of human life is a day of ceasing, a day already blessed, a day already set apart. Understanding Shabbat as cessation rather than exhaustion changes how we think about rest. Sabbath is not about collapsing because you're worn out. It is about intentionally stopping to recognize that what has been made is enough. Later, this creation pattern becomes the foundation for the Sabbath command. But here in Genesis, it is simply part of how the world is structured. 6 days of purposeful work and 1 day of stopping. So here's your challenge. If God chose to cease in order to mark His work as complete, what is something in your own productive or creative life that you need to stop? Not because you're tired, but because it's time to acknowledge completion. Thanks for joining me on this journey through Genesis in Biblical Hebrew. In the next video, we'll look at the ancient Hebrew letters themselves and how the earliest readers would have seen and understood the script of Scripture.